I had to spend the past 3 days at a national FPV racing event where pilots travelled from all over New Zealand and even Australia to compete, including none other than drone racing champion Thomas Bitmata. So I'd say that this is the perfect place to be interviewing top FPV pilots and essentially finding out how to win races. So we're going to start off with...
Gang.
Gang. How long have you been flying FPV, like as a gen?
I got into it in 2016, so we'd be like between 6 and 7 years now. Yeah.
Is that racing that whole time?
I started off with the goal of racing because I saw that on YouTube. Got into racing, bit of freestyle, and then have now like gone into doing a lot of filming with it as well. The satisfaction of racing comes from just like smooth lines, smooth flying, and just like getting really good lap times. And also when you're filming, you're kind of just on your own, but then when you're here, it's just this full-on nerd fest with all of your mates.
To top on what you were saying before about smooth lines and good lap times around the track,
Yeah.
how do you train for that? Like, how do you personally train for that side of things?
I go to a field with like a couple of mates or just by myself and set up obstacles that I've seen in big races and kind of do drills on those. Yeah, I always focused on being smooth, and it's almost like Modern Family, Phil Dunphy. I remember he said, as they're trying to leave the house quickly, he's like, slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Straight fast.
Kind of trying to like slow your brain down enough so that you're thinking ahead to where you need to be after you exit a gate.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Sweet as.
So what is your name and how long have you been flying FPV?
My name is Thomas Bitmata, or BMS Thomas, in the drone racing scene, and I've been flying FPV since December 2011.
2011. So what are we talking there? That's... I'm going to let you do the maths.
13 years? 12? 12?
Yes.
I don't do...
12 to 13 years.
My math brain is toasted. But
That's okay. But what isn't a toaster is your goddamn flying skills. And so how do you train for racing as general?
okay, there's all sorts of training. So I've got drill training that I do. Maybe I want to focus on a specific element. One example of that, directly related to this event, the triple gates with the flags. I spent a day right to set up that one element and just practice that whole thing the whole time, right? It's a new element, something that I'm unfamiliar with. Let's get some sick time behind it and just focus on that one section. A little bit brutal. It's one of those things. I can only do so much drill training, right? Like it's hard work. It gets to a point where it gets tiring. So with that, I mix it up with normal race practice, setting up technical tracks, fun tracks. A new one I've been doing with Dad, which is really fun. We do spec racing, so we have 2 identical setup quads, and when we race, we like handicap as we go to balance it out every 2 races. And what we do is we split up the elements equally. So we've got 6 gates, 2 dive gates, 2 flags. Dad gets a flag, 2 gates, and a dive gate. I get the same. And then we have a start gate, and then like a gate on the other side. And we basically toss a coin for the rotation of the track, clockwise, anti-clockwise. Toss a coin for who gets which side of the track, and we each build a half. It keeps it really fun. It's one of those things, we do that maybe once a week, but it just keeps you fresh. Because the tracks, if you just do fly your own tracks all the time, it's almost like you have your own like rhythm, if that makes sense, your own style. And if you don't taste sort of everyone else's style, sort of sample it, everyone else's pacing, I think you almost, not necessarily stale, but like you almost lock into only your style of flying and all tracks feel weird.
You limit yourself, right? That would sort of be like, you'd be limiting yourself by only focusing on your way of flying and instead of trying to focus on other people's ways of flying and like improving on that.
Correct, yeah. And you'll find that where if you say are a part of a local club, you might find that, say, when the club organizer builds a track versus one of the pilots builds a track, they've got like a unique feel, a distinct sort of signature to themselves. Getting a sample of all those signatures and having that variety. Actually, if I did have to sum up my training, it is variety. It's doing a bit of everything. That's, I think, what keeps me sort of feeling fresh and sort of always on the improve.
With the variety, does simulator training come into play there?
Yes, this is something I've only picked up since the pandemic times. So I used to fly the sim pre-pandemic, you know, when simulators were new, so FPV Freerider and Liftoff. Then did a bit of DRL in 2016, DRL sim. Then 2017 and onwards, I basically dropped it for whatever reason. When the pandemic came, I had a bit of time where obviously we're not flying or anything, so I started picking up Velocidrone. Now, at the moment, I'll do half an hour to an hour a day, 5 days a week.
That's quite a lot of training on just the simulator, and you're doing that as well as your other training too, right?
That's correct, yeah. So I try to, though, some days I'll miss it. Obviously, if, I train for a long time, we go out for dinner or something, pick up dinner on the way home, it might just get to the point it's bedtime when I get home, right? So in that case, there's no point staying up late and killing my sleep. I'll just go to bed. But if I can, I'll try to do it. I really like the simulators because, especially within the case of Velocidrone, you get community-made tracks. And once again, it's that different styles. Usually because it's a simulator, they're more technically complex than a real track. And it's almost getting your brain in the rhythm of learning tracks, memorizing, not getting lost, and then even just getting used to the sort of the rough stick movements of just throwing the sticks around in sort of weird positions that you wouldn't normally. That way, when you come to something like this, which is really technically complex in the real world, it's sort of less foreign. You're used to sort of banging the sticks around and just having confidence in your inputs.
Okay, well, to wrap up, how do you win a race?
It is to make the least value in mistakes than anyone else.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so I've had races where I have botched up the qualifying, barely made it through the heats, and then performed really well in the finals, right? And taken a win, right? Equally, in Multi-GP Champs 2019, did a really strong qualifying, performed really well through all the heats. In the finals, I had a mid-air with Vanover and Drobot Racer. I was able to claw back and get a second place, which is really sick, right? But my one mistake that I made in that final was way higher, like, penalty as far as where it placed me than a whole bunch of little mistakes elsewhere. So it's sort of, if you can imagine, there's like an optimal path to like victory. The game of racing, the how to win, is to try and deviate from that optimal as little as possible.
Epic. Thank you. Can you please introduce yourself and how long you've been flying for?
Yo, I'm Seth, also known as Crypto FPV. I fly drones, been flying for 7 years.
Is that racing for those 7 years?
Yeah, racing and freestyle and anything.
Lovely. Okay. How do you train for racing? So how would you train either daily or for an event like this sort of thing?
We run weekly races here. So every Wednesday night we do racing. So that's a great spot to go from being complete noob to complete pro. But simulator can't be beat really. Rain or shine, you can jump on your laptop from anywhere and fly any track anywhere in the world. So simulators are awesome. Can get a bit boring, but still a real good tool.
Simulator of choice.
Got to be Velocidrone. I started on Liftoff. Liftoff was alright. Sort of a bit before Velocidrone got popular, but Velocidrone's racing can't really be beat.
What is the best way to win a race?
God, what a question.
The golden question, actually.
Get Thomas to fly it for you.
Yeah, if you're not Thomas, start slow is my best advice. You're going to have a first pack of the day, always. My main bit of advice is just to get around the track on your first pack. Don't try do anything crazy. Don't even look at lines. Just get through every gate because that's your starting point. And from there, you can work your way out. If you have a little bit of a bobble, totally fine. But I just find mentally, for me, if I can make one lap, I know I can at least do that, and then I can build from there. So
I love this. This is exactly what Evan Turner with Heads Up said. Like exactly on that. Well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it, and happy racing. What is your name, and how long have you been within the FPV space?
Good question. I'm Kevin, mostly known by Quato. I've been doing it about 6 years now.
Racing for those 6 years?
No, so I started out just doing freestyle. I was one of those people that just got into it by just doing only freestyle, and I was actually against racing for about 2 years.
Why were you against it?
Oh, well, it just seemed like too many rules and all that kind of stuff. But then when I actually finally tried to race once, I was like, this is amazing. And just the camaraderie kept me coming back. And now that's all I've been doing. I don't even freestyle anymore.
How do you train for a racing event?
So probably a few years ago when I was first really getting into racing, I would probably go out 3 or 4 times, maybe even 5 times a week for a couple of hours and just set up gates and just pump out lap after lap. And I'd even do just drills with like one obstacle or something and just pump that out pack after pack. And just really drill the stuff into you to the point where you're not thinking about doing it. But now that I'm at a more comfortable flying level, I tend not to do too much real life practicing now. I pretty much only practice on Velocidrone now.
Really?
I'll practice on Velocidrone and then I'll go out and race at the club with my real ones, yeah.
That's crazy. So when you mean race at the club, are you talking that's like, weekly racing?
Yeah, so that's our club drone racing in Wellington, and we race like once a month.
How do you win a race?
So basically, from what I can see from like especially the really top guys, when it comes to the pressure situations like an event like this, is just consistency. Where the difference between the very top guys that are winning events and the guys just below them, who might get similar lap times, is the consistency. So they'll be putting in, for example, like a 17-second lap 5 times, 6 times in a row, and that guy might be doing like 1 or 2. And really all it comes down to is training. So you've got the best guys in the world, they're just training countless packs daily. And it's almost a full-time job if you want to get to that point. But that might put some people off, but also you don't have to be at the top of the game to have the best time. Exactly. Yeah. You got to come to an event like this.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not even racing at this event, and it's just a whole lot of fun seeing everyone else's skill levels, and also seeing like yourself. You've broken your personal record how many times today?
I just did it 3 times today.
Yeah. And we're just experiencing crashes. We're going around here too.
We got some big doozy crashes going on. We've had a few written off quads.
Have you ridden up any turf?
No, I've been solid.
That's what you like to hear. Okay, lovely. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. And happy racing.
Thank you.
Do you want to introduce yourself and how many years you've been flying FPV for?
My name's Bryce. My pilot handle is Rizzler. I've been flying FPV for probably about 4 years now.
Is that racing for those 4 years, or did you start off with freestyle? Or?
Yeah, started off like with just little micro quads, and then got a really, really fast 3-inch that was running on 4S. It could go, 180, 200k, and I was like, okay, this is insanely cool.
How do you personally train yourself to come to this event?
It's different because like you can fly at the park or by yourself and train, but then coming here and like at the same time you're hearing all these other quads, you got to really know how to filter out the other sounds and trust what you know and you see in your quad, and not focus on sounds or anything. You just got to kind of lock in and remember what you're doing. But
for this, did you go to parks and stuff, or were you like primarily within simulators or flying with mates? Like, what was sort of your go-to?
well, me and my mate Blair, we started a club called Eastside FPV in Auckland. So we been hosting race days, but we haven't even been able to fly this year because weather, then floods and cyclones. It's just like, yes, on Thursday I had a little warm up and it was the first time flying the 5-inch this year. But velocity drones are always a good place to have some practice because the track's already loaded up on there, and at least when you come here you know. But you do obviously have to adjust a little bit as the lines are going to be slightly different. It's not, when you do the real thing. But yeah, my biggest thing was, when racing with other people, just focus on what I see, nothing else.
So more about what you see and less about anything that you're hearing at that point.
For sure, because sometimes you listen out for your quad or you hear someone else's quad, like if they've got a bent prop and you think, hey, I've got a bent prop, but you well know you haven't even hit anything. So yeah, you just kind of get over it a little bit.
How do you win a race?
Kind of brings it back to like before, you got to focus on yourself and like fly how you know you can, like fly to your strengths, like don't overdo it because, oh my God, it's race day, I've got to be faster. Fly your game, get to the finish line, worry about who you did beat or didn't beat at the end, just focus on yourself.
Thank you.
No worries, mate.
We're going for the shake. We are. Appreciate it. Happy racing.